How about a personal first aid kit? Each individual person in each individual bug out bag needs a first aid kit. And how about a medical kit, a full-scale medical kit in the house? Something to set up at home in case health care is not available. You know, it's not unforeseeable for actual hospitals to be evacuated and communities to be left without health care or health clinics. What would you do? Do you have things as simple as work gloves and simple tools that could be used for rescue, repairs, or cleanups? You know, you don't have to have a lot, but you need something to work with. Even if it's a crowbar, a claw hammer, and a shovel, you need something to work with. You need some kind of cash or something to barter. I recommend coinage, but whatever you want, but you need some cash on hand, and you need some things put back to barter. You may not have firearms right now. You'll need them, and as we go through this series, you'll understand the necessities of them. But buy some extra ammunition. Maybe it's engages or calibers that you don't even have and don't intend to have, but someone will need them, and it will make a barter tool for you. Do you have a way to heat at least one room of your house without electricity or gas? Now think about that. Without electricity or gas, can you heat one room? Here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, the history and the heritage of our people go back a long way, and we go back to one-room cabins and one-room houses, and it was built that way intentionally for heating and cooking. There would be a cook stove that would be set in an area, and that cook stove would heat the house. It would cook the food. There would be a table and some chairs and a bed, and that would be about it in these rooms, because the house wasn't made as an item to be gawked at and to be admired. It was built as something functional. It was built as shelter. And that's what it served as. And if need be, if you needed to reduce your entire home to one room in the house, do you have a means to heat that one room? Something you need to consider. If you are on prescription meds, do you have at least 1 month's supply on hand of every prescription that you have? You should. Do you have a plan for toilet facilities and for hygiene if there's an extended water or power shortage? Huh? You might have plenty of toilet paper, but what are you going to do with it? Where are you going to go? Have you thought about that? How are you going to handle it? How are you going to handle bathing? If you do have food and water, first aid, sanitation supplies, and other things, how long will they last? And how many people will they sustain over that period of time? If you have food and supplies for 2 people for 3 months, that means it could be stretched to 4 people for 1.5 months. You know, you need to know there's a lot of things that have to be considered when you're talking about prepping. And I realize if you've been prepping, if you've been doing it for a while, you've probably thought of these. But if you're new to it, or if you're really wanting to do it on a budget, you're limited in your income, then you still have to consider these things, and you have to put all of these things into perspective as you're moving forward, because it's not all about the money you spend, it's about how you spend the money you have. We're going to cover that shortly as well. Do you have any firearms for self-defense or home security? And if you do you have enough ammunition and the skills to properly and ethically use them? Do you know the gun laws in your state and in the area you live in? You better. Because when I'm talking to you about firearms, I'm using the area that I live in as an example. But you are responsible for the area you live in. And you have to know. Knowledge is power, and power is skills, and skills are the ability to make things happen. And last but not least, do you have a Bible? Now, you may have made the mistake that many others have made, and you may have determined that people who carry Bibles and depend on Bibles are weak and very liberal and very easy to manipulate and twist and turn. There are some out there that do fit that, I admit, but not all. Matter of fact, the vast majority of people that have a Bible are very set in their ways. They're very sure and sincere. They're very faithful. And they will rely on the Bible during difficult times to help them make decisions. How about you? Will you? I recommend that you have one. Have one that you are comfortable reading, and have one that you're comfortable sharing stories and being able to teach from it, because somewhere along the way you will need it. Now, do you realize that our nation today survives on what's called a just-in-time delivery system? There's no local storage in the grocery stores anymore. They have nothing warehoused. The food you see on the shelves is what you get. When it's gone, there's no more until the truck runs. That's why you see the shelves empty so quickly during a winter storm or a hurricane. They're stocked for a certain percentage of sales between truckloads. And as they show up and as the trucks show up, they restock the shelves. And under normal circumstances, everything is fine. But when things get rough and people make a run, the shelves empty quickly, and they're empty until the truck runs again. What happens if the truck don't run? That should be what you're prepping for. What happens if the truck doesn't show up? What are you and your family going to do? Well, when you're talking about prepping, it doesn't matter if you have a bank account that's the size of Texas, or if you have a bank account that's a thimble size. You're still going to require food. And you're going to require that food per day. So how do you calculate it? How do you know how much food you're going to need? How do you know how much food you're going to have on hand? How do you know how much food you're going to need to have on hand? Well, we're going to go over that. We're going to take a look at it, and we're going to go over some examples. And we're going to discuss them during this broadcast and give you some things to think about and hopefully put together so that when we start getting into some more detail next week, you will have a game plan. You will be able to sit down, take the information that we've provided this week, and put it into some application for next week, okay? The average adult male needs around 2,300 calories a day. Now, this will keep you fed, but it may not keep you full, okay? There's a difference. Each one of us eat differently. That's about 24.6 ounces of food a day. And, of course, this will be adjusted up or down according to individuals and according to their individual needs. So, as we talk about these things moving forward, we are basing it on one adult male for 1 year at 2,300 calories a day, okay? Now, we're going to make some adjustments of this at the end, but for right now, that's going to be the foundation of what we're building on. 400 pounds of grain. Now, this includes corn, and it includes anything from wheat, barley, rye, any of these things like this. Whole wheats, any flours, corn meals, any of this stuff. 400 pounds. Now this grain, when I'm talking about corn, I'm not talking about canned corn like you buy in the grocery store. I'm talking about dried corn like you would buy before you would grind it up. These are raw grainage, okay? This is grainage that you would have to have a grinder or some type of grinding method in order to process it, because raw grainage is much easier to store than processed flours. I'm not saying you can't store processed flours. We're going to get into that because you can, and you can store it effectively. But in either case, 400 pounds is 400 pounds, and that's per year per person. And we're going to get into breaking this down as we go along. So don't feel like you're getting overwhelmed already, all right? Then there are beans and legumes, and it's 90 pounds are recommended with a minimum of 60. So again, that's going to depend on how many beans and legumes that you eat or you're willing to eat, okay? You need to break these things down as to what beans you like. And these can be canned beans, like you buy in a grocery store, peas and legumes. They can be dried. You can acquire this 90 pounds and these 400 pounds in a lot of different ways. It's entirely the manner that you get them and how you get them is not relevant. The amounts are what's relevant right now. We will get into how you get them later, but right now what's important is that you understand how much of these that you need and why you need them, and then we will cover how you get them, okay? 75 pounds of milk and dairy products with a minimum of 16 pounds. Now, milk and dairy products can be bought a lot of different ways. Obviously, milk out of a grocery store in the gallon containers has a very short shelf life. However, powdered milk can be kept for a long time when stored properly. Now, it may not be very palatable to you right now, but there are some things you can do to make it palatable, and we're going to discuss those as well. But powdered milk needs to have vitamins A and D, and it is something that you seriously need to consider. Also, eggs. Now, you can buy dehydrated eggs and add water, and from what I understand, they've really made some progress in these and how they taste and everything like that. But let me give you another angle on this. If you live in a rural or a suburban area and you're allowed to have livestock, do you realize that you could have 2 or 3 laying hens in your backyard and collect fresh eggs, and you can save those fresh eggs from 9 to 12 months without refrigeration? All you have to do is take the egg. Don't wash it off. Take it straight as it's hatched. Rub it down with mineral oil and let it saturate the shell. You see, a chicken egg is porous, and it will allow air to permeate and get into the egg inside. That's what makes it spoil. When you coat it with mineral oil, you prevent it from getting air, so it prevents it from spoiling. This has been proven. I can vouch for this method. When you learn to do this and learn to do it correctly, you can save eggs for 9 to 12 months. It's very possible to do so. However, you do need to practice this. Don't go to the grocery store and buy eggs out of the grocery store and try this. It will not work, because when an egg is laid, there is a coating that's on the outside of that egg that gets washed off during processing. Without that coating, it will not allow that mineral oil to properly permeate the shell, and it's a very iffy chance of it working. And these are on fresh, raw eggs that are straight out of the chicken house, okay? Practice it. You can probably buy these local or at a local farmer's market. But the thing is, you need to practice this. And if you're going to do it, you need to practice it so that you understand how it works and why it works. Now, as you're practicing it and you're going to eat these eggs, break them into a jar or a glass or a bowl or something and smell them. Smell them. You know what a bad egg smells like. If it smells good and it looks good, then fry it and eat it, or fix it and eat it. If it doesn't smell good, throw it out. You know, common sense comes into play with prepping. Common sense comes into play with prepping, and it will in all parts of prepping. And you're going